I'm going to preface this review with a PSA. If you clicked on this review without knowing what Quasi at the Quackadero is, I would highly suggest viewing it first before continuing with this video. With all that said and done, let's get down to business. Quasi at the Quackadero is, to put it simply, one of the greatest animations ever put to film. The visuals, the nonsense, the sense of what the fuck is going on, and combinations of all these three are what makes this piece not a film, but an experience. If I were able to put into a sentence exactly what this oddity did right, I would probably be able to find a pattern in all the Sudoku puzzles ever created. Unfortunately for both my roommate and my 87-year-old step-grandmother, I can't. So let's try to understand this masterpiece one step at a time. The story of this fever dream begins all the way back in 1972 with animator and San Francisco Art Institute student Sally Cruikshank. She was working on her graduate student animation, Chow Fun, and renting out equipment and space from Snazel Films. While there, as a client and customer of the company, she attracted the attention of those who actually worked there. That attention landed her a job, and she was the head of animation at Snazel by the end of that summer of 1972. Cruikshank went on to begin development of her project, Quasi at the Quackadero, which took her 2 years to draw, alone. 4 months of photography and post-production. Yeah, she was doing it the old-fashioned way. And $6,000 of her own money. Her then-boyfriend and cartoonist Kim Deitch helped her color the cells, in addition to offering his voice for Quasi himself. That, more or less, was the production. From the first sight, the cartoon has a very Disney-esque feel to it. The lettering, the background, even the music seems reminiscent of the classic Disney-era style of cartoons. The coloring is stark and even borderline gaudy, but it fits the aesthetic Cruikshank was probably aiming for. Once we get into the cartoon, the furniture is dancing, objects have faces, and the animation, again, calls back to when just a couple of frames looping would make up a shot. Quasi is watching TV in bed, a novel idea for the time, and laughs and comments on how he loves looking at pictures of people working. Our first impression of Quasi is a mixed one. Why does he like people working? Is it because of the contrast between him laying in bed and people working hard in a factory is so strong? Does he enjoy seeing systematic production like we see today on How It's Made? Is he just fucking weird? With this film, all answers are correct, and at the same time, none of them are. The answer is presumably because that's what Quasi likes to watch. It just exists. Soon enough, we're introduced to Anita, Quasi's girlfriend, wife, sister, handler? It's never really clearly explained, but she's just here. Shh, no questions now. She tells him they're going to the Quackadero today, presumably the carnival equivalent of Planet Fox, and that Rollo is already in the car. Ugh, Christ, we've gotten to Rollo. Okay, let's backtrack here for a second. Before reading the Wikipedia article for this review, I would have never assumed that Quasi was a duck, but it seems that he is. Anita, apparently, is also a duck, which is a bit of a stretch because her skin color... Yeah, we're going there. Doesn't exactly scream duck to me, but I guess if she's the same general shape as Quasi, who doesn't really look like a duck in the first place, I'll roll with it. Rollo, on the other hand, really stumped me. When I first watched it, I thought he was some kind of octopus in a wheelchair, but then I saw the way his hand moves and maybe thought he was some kind of crab-like creature, but no. According to Wikipedia, Rollo is a robot. That just screams robot, doesn't it? Anyway, I also kind of assumed that he was their kid or something, but it turns out he's their pet. Rollo is their robotic pet. Quasi comes across as not liking Rollo, calling him a no-good set of training wheels. This causes Anita to shoot knives out of her eyes at Quasi. Holy shit! So Anita waits with Rollo in the car for Quasi to get ready, but he instead hops on a toy dinosaur, and he's suddenly ready. So why not just follow Anita outside? Why, it's so the house, who was probably a former coal power plant, could say goodbye to Quasi.
Bye, Quasi!
Bye, Quasi! It happens all the time. So they get in the car, and someone goes, as they fly through town and land at the Quackadero. Ah, the Quackadero. The titular set piece of this fine cartoon. Okay, remember watching Star Wars and seeing all the different aliens at the bar for the first time? And you just wanted to pause and look at each one of them one by one? Well, that's the Quackadero. Each one of these characters has their own unique art style and really does deserve at least a moment of your time to just admire them all. The first amusement is what they call your shining moment, where this robot who sounds like he's drowning projects one of your favorite memories on a screen in front of the crowd. Winky Orlando was a lucky participant who got to project the time that he walked in on a naked woman on a hotel. However, this was no ordinary hotel. No, this was the hotel that Mr. Orlando was staying for well, if I say it, you'll never believe me, so I'll let Bobby the robot tell you. Tell us, Bobby, why was Winky Orlando at this hotel?
Winky, remember that time at the National Vegetable Convention when you were given the wrong key by mistake?
There you have it. The National Vegetable Convention. It was at this moment while watching the film that I knew I had stumbled upon something very special, something unique, something with the off-the-wall bizarre aesthetic that I and my other friends on the internet have been trying to emulate for years. I just have so many questions about what is supposed to be this shining moment of my life. Why is Mr. Orlando, who's clearly not a vegetable, at the National Vegetable Convention? What kind of things does one do at the National Vegetable Convention? How can I sign up to go to the next National Vegetable Convention? And why is there one hyper-realistic face just sitting there? To answer these questions would be doing a great disservice to the strange and confusing art form as a whole. Why is Mr. Orlando at the National Vegetable Convention? Well, because we needed to put him somewhere to walk in on a woman in a hotel. And that he does, and that's that. That one little scene, and the National Vegetable Convention ceases to exist from the realms of the universe, never to return, just like the questions. End of story, and that's how we like it sometimes.
Sorry, Mr. Orlando, your time is up. That never happened to me.
Shut up, Mr. Orlando. He said your time's up. Go back into the box with all the other disposable characters and plot lines, never to exist again. The next attraction is the Hall of Time Mirrors, which is similar to the Hall of Silly Mirrors, but these ones have time in them. We have Anita and Rollo looking at themselves in an old age in a not very flattering light. And we have Quasi looking at himself in 100 years, which is just a skeleton. Spooky. The music here is fantastic. It has a fun, Coney Island feel to it, and what I can only imagine is a jellyfish from SpongeBob doing the vocals. Now, this woman is looking at the time mirror, but it just shows her with a bunch of animals, which I can't really say Oh, it's the animals before they died and became an accessory. Oh, very clever. I honestly didn't catch that until I was writing the sentence. Yeah. Then the animals turn into food later on, see, you can just come back and watch it again and just catch more the second time around. On to the Think Blink Paints Pictures of Your Thoughts, which reads more like a magazine advertisement than the name of a carnival attraction.
Would you like to, Rollo?
Yeah, that's where I got the idea for the crab thing. Maybe he's just Clamps from Futurama. So he imagines himself as Jay Gatsby with everything around him looking like Anita. I guess it's a bit weird that he imagined himself like that, but can we just address for 1 second that A, a robot just had his thoughts painted onto a sheet of paper, and B, he seems capable of love? Fuck it, I guess we threw realism out the window with that dancing couch. The music here is really weird, and when I say that when talking about this movie, I really mean it.
Rather pretty if I do say so.
So when it's Quasi's turn, he imagines something that makes the artist faint, which I must admit kind of caught me off guard. Wait, where have I heard that before? I started imagining what kinds of things he could have been thinking about, but it turns out it was just a picture of him eating Anita and Rollo, which really wasn't as upsetting as what I had imagined, but I guess if you really look at it, it's kind of funny. Next up is the Dream Reader, which is kind of disconnected from the compelling tale of Quasi and Anita at the fair, but really shows off Cruikshank's art style. It's really well done and highlights one of the things that I like most about the aesthetic. Just an avant-garde art style in a pure form with really cool transitions. That's all I really have to say about it, so I'll just let you experience it for yourself. It tactfully brings us back to the main story of Quasi and Anita at the fair taking a lunch break. There's something I didn't notice initially until it was pointed out by a friend, but now I can't not hear it. The way the characters eat is kind of unnecessary. Jesus Christ, are you okay? Now we see this Sun Man taking a swing, kind of playing off the sleazy carny archetype that's existed for who knows how long. Wait a minute. That's not Sun Man. It's... So these fat asses come his way, and he lures Quasi in by telling him how amazing it would be to see his past lives. I'm sorry, I didn't do it justice. Here.
Young man, I see by your face you must have spent numerous lifetimes on this grand planet, merrily traveling from one incarnation to another. And I bet you would leap at an opportunity to get one good look at yourself in those other lives. And who wouldn't? Well, young man, I'm offering you that golden chance. Yes, on this very stage I will summon for your amusement and delight no less than 5. Yes, I said 5 of your former incarnations. Ah, who could pass up such a chance, and only for 1 silver ticket? What do you say to that, my good fellow?
Oh, of course he'll do it.
Fine. Now just step this way and make yourselves comfortable.
I know it's a short bit and it's not that important overall to the story, but the writing and delivery is just so compelling. It really seems like it's coming directly from the lips of an actual veteran carny. You know the guys.
Step right up, folks, and witness the magnificent medicinal miracle of Simpson & Sons patented revitalizing tonic. Put some honor in your larder with our energizing, moisturizing, tantalizing, romanticizing, surprising, herprising, revitalizing tonic.
Anyway, I really get the feeling they're trying to get across. He promises Quasi that the spirits will call his name, right before asking Quasi what his name is, and whispering into the actors portraying Quasi's former selves.
What did you say your name was?
Quasi!
Ah, yes, Quasi! And that's that. And to think for only a silver ticket, you too can have men in costume say hello to you.
Hello, Quasi. Hello, Quasi.
Like I said, it captures the sleazy carny aesthetic perfectly. But Quasi gets frightened by one of the monsters and hitches a ride with this bird tractor into the time holes. Yes, the time holes. Well, that one's pretty self-explanatory, but they still explain it to the viewers who live under a fucking rock and have never visited a time hole exhibit at just about every fair and museum in the United States. Like I said, common knowledge to just about everyone, but they still do the courtesy to explain it to the thick folks, so it is what it is.
Anita, is that really a hole in time?
Yes, Quasi. And if you fell over, you'd land right smack in that time, and you'd never come back.
But then we have this man explain how his neighbor fell into the Romans exhibit is now stuck there forever. His neighbor that looks just like him, naturally. Oh, sorry, I thought we were still explaining the obvious. Yeah, so just to recap, time holes are a hole in time. Your neighbor always looks nearly identical to you. Bill Clinton is a rapist, and the sky is blue. Quasi then goes through 3 different walk cycles to take a look at the time hole of the year 3 million BC. Anita and Rollo seem to be suddenly plotting against him and plan to push him in. You can tell this cartoon was from the 70s because they don't have protective glass around their time holes, as I and many people I know have grown up with. Ah, the frontier days of time holes must have really been exciting. Anyway, Anita brings Quasi a chocolate cake to bait Quasi to lean over the railing, and Rollo rams him into the time hole, sending him back to the year 3 million BC to live with the dinosaurs. You people know how these things work.
Hey, Freddy! Do you remember seeing that cute little ducky before?
No, Chucky.
Jesus Christ, these men's voices. It's like someone trying to do a mocking impression of someone else trying to voice these people, but no, these are their voices. Well, back into the box of disposable characters you two go, boys. So yeah, we have Quasi eating a watermelon on a rock before being chased away with his sex pig or whatever it is. And yeah, that's Quasi at the Quackadero. Quasi at the Quackadero is the most bizarre thing I've ever experienced. One of the regrets I have is not finding this odyssey sooner. For quite a while, I've been fascinated with outlandish, psychedelic, and nonsensical cartoons. Maybe one of the reasons I never found it was because the merchandise for this is actually very sparse. All I could find after a cursory search was a poster and some cells from the cartoon. So yeah, if you can't market the hell out of our cartoon, good luck finding it unless you really try. But Quasi at the Quackadero won't give a fuck about any of that. It's been called number 46 of the greatest cartoons of all time by animation critic and historian Jerry Beck, and it's really easy to see why. I apologize for momentarily overlooking the hypnotic visuals and top-notch composition, but beyond that, it's a cartoon with heart. It was created for $6,000 of Sally Cruikshank's own money, and was made with a crew of people smaller than micro-budget film crews I've worked on in this day and age. It used Cruikshank's own art style, despite it looking far from the kinds of cartoons that other companies were pumping out at the time. I would go so far as to call Quasi an art house film, not because of the subtle artistic storytelling, but because it was made by someone who truly loved the project and who truly loved cartoons. And I love Quasi too. Speaking of Quasi too, he's had a few more adventures than just going to the Quackadero. There's another Quasi picture that I'd love to continue talking about, but that perhaps is a different story for a different day.